This is about who gets to decide whether someone is legally recognised as transitioning from one gender to the other. Up until now, this was a medical process, a process with several stages and quite a lengthy and indeed costly process for people. Now, these reforms that have taken place in Scotland, or have been voted on, not yet received royal assent, and we'll get to that later. But these that have been voted on in Scotland now make that a more streamlined process, take the medical issue out of it and say that the person who ultimately gets to sort of make the decision in terms of who they are is the person concerned. This is the law in Ireland as it stands, it's the law in Belgium as it stands, but there are lots of countries, of course, where it isn't. Indeed, the Conservative government was pursuing this sort of reform in 2017, but was dropped after a consultation. So this is where Scotland and England and Wales and Northern Ireland are diverging. And that is the issue that the UK government has. They believe that there may well be a clash between the legal rights as respected and implemented in Scotland versus the rest of the UK. And there's some concern in government that this new gender recognition law in Scotland may be sort of at loggerheads with the Equality Act 2010 in Westminster. And that means that late last night, after the Scottish Parliament voted for this law, the Scottish Secretary Alistair Jack started talking about what's called a Section 35 order. It's a bit complicated. It's part of the Scotland Act, the settlement of devolution within the United Kingdom. But it basically means if the United Kingdom government see that there is harm from a piece of legislation in the Scottish Parliament, that it might clash against UK legislation, then this order could prevent royal assent. Now, they've got about 4 weeks to decide whether or not to carry that forward.
Now, there were cries of shame on you as this was voted through. It certainly feels like the appetite is there in Westminster to take this on. Is this a battle worth fighting, philosophically, politically, or is it more than that? Is this about stopping Scotland, devolving power, and this is a war that Westminster must fight? So
there's two unionist differing points of view on this. Now, it must be said that there are, in terms of those who voted for the law in Scotland, and there's been a lot of debate in this in Scotland, it ended up being that the Lib Dems and most Labour, Scottish Labour MSPs and most SNP MPs backed it, so it passed by a large majority in the Scottish Parliament. Now, the trouble is, for some unionists in the United Kingdom, having this sort of battle shows the benefits of the union, that they can sort of clip the wings of Nicola Sturgeon. For other unionists, they see that actually this could put rocket boosters under the Scottish nationalist cause. Of course, it's not been long since that court order that say that the Scottish Parliament doesn't have the right to call an independence referendum whenever they want to, that they need Westminster's consent for that. And if Westminster were to pursue a Section 35 order striking down this Scottish legislation, that would be the first time in history such an order has ever been used. So there are some unionists who think that this would undermine the unionist cause because it would be sort of saying that we don't really respect the devolved settlement of Holyrood as an institution. And so there is this conversation going on, no doubt at the top of government, over this Christmas period, because, of course, royal assent is not due to take place until January. So they do have this time to sort of discuss this, to think what is the best way through here, and there are strong arguments on either side.